Okay, Boker Tov, everybody. Today's stuff is Ayin Hay. We're a little behind, but as I said, we'll be posting 2.p a little later today. So we'll be caught up, God willing. We pick up at the very bottom of Ayin Bet, and we just finished the whole discussions about we heard by Yavel when you're supposed to give up your life, and the basic conclusion is in private, just for the three big ones, Avodah Gilor and Shvichus Damim, but once it's in public, and those are for particular reasons, and once it's in public and it's done for the sake of making a person transgress, so it's done as a way of undermining the faith, or it's just a general period of Shas Hashmad, then that becomes an act of Kiddush Hashem, and that's even for a minor thing. And we had an interesting discussion. When it's not Shas Hashmad in public, it has to be specifically for the purpose of making somebody transgress, not for Hanas Atzma, not that just doing it for their own purposes. And we had a whole fascinating discussion about the whole issue about women and Karka Olam, and is it Yehareg Val Yavor, or Tehareg Val Tavor? Okay, and now we pick up with a different tack on this. Okay, and it says like this. Bo Mine, it is about 8 lines from the bottom. Bo Mine mi Rabbi Ami, they asked from every Ami. Ben Noach mitzvah kiddush Hashem, o eino mitzvah kiddush Hashem. Is Ben Noach obligated to give up his life rather than transgressing one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach? Now, first of all, Tosos asks, how do we know? Why do we start by assuming he's not and have to prove that he is? Why don't we assume that he's obligated to give up his life? Forget Kiddush Hashem, because he's commanded. By the Jews, we know you're not obligated to give up your life because it says v'chai b'hem. But by non-Jews, it doesn't say v'chai b'hem. So Tosos sort of has, raises the question, but he basically concludes maybe you don't really need v'chai b'hem. Maybe you only need v'chai b'hem to counteract the idea that there's some mitzvahs you're supposed to give up your life for. But maybe we would have started, even without a verse, to assume that you don't give up your life for mitzvot. So that seems to be the starting point anyway by the Bnei Noach. And the question is, are they obligated in Kiddush Hashem? Now, the Gemara does not seem to mean specifically the 3 big ones, although the Bnei Noach have the 3 big ones, Avodah Zarah, Gilur, and Shvichus Damim. So it could mean specifically about those 3, but let's remember that those 3 were not framed as issues of Kiddush Hashem. Those 3 were framed based on particular verses, meaning Yibotzeach is about protecting the whatever, like why do you think your blood is any redder? The case of Gilur was learned from that. Avodah Zarah was based on Ahavas Hashem. Kiddush Hashem specifically is in the context of either Shas Hashmad or Mechaving to make you over, right? An aspect of like Parhesia and Mechaving to make you over. So you would have to imagine a case, for example, that that some pagan government is trying to make the frum non-Jews, violate their Sheva mitzvahs or something of that nature. Okay, but it's specifically a question of Kiddush Hashem, presumably about all 7 mitzvot in a context of Kiddush Hashem, not necessarily about the big 3. Yes, Charlie.
This is the first time that Kiddush Hashem for non-Jews has come up, and we had pages of discussion of the Sheva mitzvah b'nei Noach, or more than that, and it never came up.
Sure, and we also have a Shas that discusses the Taryag mitzvahs of Bnei Yisrael, and Kiddush Hashem only comes up in this context. So even though we're talking about the other mitzvahs, we're talking about Kiddush Hashem, so here we're going to talk about it in terms of non-Jews. So Gemara says like this, Amar Bai Tashma, Sheva mitzvahs nitztav b'nei Noach. There's only 7. Isa Tamli Habin. According to you, there's an 8th mitzvah called Kiddush Hashem. So Amalei Rava, no. Inu v'kol av Yisrael. No. When it says 7, it means 7, and there of Israel is appurtenances and the things connected to them. Somebody was just who said it the other day that in modern Hebrew, there's a word like Av Yisrael in modern Hebrew. I think that means like computer peripherals or something like that. So anyway, Avazir or something. Anyway, so Av Yisrael means the things connected with it. So if there's a mitzvah to, let's say, I don't know, not steal. So the question of, are you supposed to steal or not steal if it's an act of Kiddush Hashem? If there's a mitzvah of Aver Min Achai, so do you do that or do you not do that when your life is at stake? So that's an aspect you could see that you could see it as an independent issue, but you could see that as an issue that determines the scope of your obligation within each of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. So the fact that it's not listed as an 8th isn't a counter proof. Okay, so Amalei Rav, my Havela. So what was the conclusion? Amar Avad Baravad, Amri Bei Rav, we say in the house of Rav. See, it says, the Dvar Hashem, the Dvar says, Yishlach Hashem la'avadecha, that was Naaman, who accepted not to be Oved Avodah Zarah. The whole case where he was cured from his leprosy, and he says to Elisha, he says, "For this one thing I ask you to forgive me. When my master, the king, goes to Beit Rimon, this house of idolatry, to prostrate, and he's going to I'll be supporting him, and I'll have to bow down with it. He says, go in peace, it's fine, don't worry about it. Okay, now, this is very interesting because, well, first of all, it sounds like bowing down with him is an act of Avodah Zarah, even though he's not doing it for the purpose of Avodah Zarah, right? He's just doing it to help support his king or whatever, the king shouldn't collapse, which is interesting. That goes to the question about, me'avo miyira, right? He's not doing it as any act of worship. He's not intending it as any act of worship, it's even less than he doesn't believe in the God. He's just really just doing it. Let's say you the Gemara has a discussion, you bend down to pick up some money that fell before an idol. It's not an act of Avodah Zarah b'shogeg. It might look like it to an onlooker, right? But it's not actually the act. It's not intended as an act of worship. So that's fascinating, right? So that's very fascinating in itself. Anyway, so it says, look, he's allowing it. He's actually giving his blessing. So it says, Isa, if there was an issue about Kiddush Hashem, lo leimalei. Don't say to him, Lech L'Shalom, like Rashi says, okay, you might not have an obligation to be Mochiach him. Maybe Hocheach Tocheach Samitecha doesn't apply to a non-Jew, but don't give him your blessing. Giving him your blessing seems like it's all okay. So the Gemara says, no, wait a minute, maybe we could say there's a difference. Habetzina Habefarhesia. Maybe that was in private, and therefore it wasn't an issue of Kiddush Hashem, but had it been in public, it would have been an issue of Kiddush Hashem. Now, what does that mean it was in private? The king goes to the base of Avodah Zarah, and that's in private. So Rashi says, well, the definition of public, you'll remember, was in the presence of 10 Jews.
Right.
So were we to say there's an act of Kiddush Hashem by non-Jews, it would only mean that they would have to do it, not do an Avera if their life is at stake or whatever, in the presence of 10 Jews, which is completely bizarre, right? That their act of Kiddush Hashem means that they shouldn't transgress the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach in the presence of 10 Jews. But in public amongst non-Jews, it wouldn't be an act of Kiddush Hashem. So that's very strange. Anyway, but that's the way Rashi reads it. Tosfos does not disagree, but Tosfos says it sounds like when the Gemara says "My Have Allah," it sounds like it's going to come to a conclusion. Read this way, we're leaving it as an open question. Is this a proof that there's a problem of Kiddush Hashem by non-Jews or not? Well, you don't know. It sounded like there wasn't a problem, but in the end, maybe it was just an issue of private, so you don't really know. Tosfos says no. He has a different gears of the Gemara. His gears of the Gemara is V'im lo, if there were a problem of what do you call it? Of Kiddush Hashem. So lo lema. Wait a minute. Let me what the gears is. V'im isa lema le habetzina habefarhesia. So if it were a problem, why didn't Elisha say to Naaman, hey, that's okay if you do it in private, but don't do it in public? Meaning that the point is, since Elisha just gave Naaman his blanket blessing, right? It seems like he's saying, okay, that's all right. Whether it's private or public, whatever, it's not a problem because there's not an issue of Kiddush Hashem. So according to Tosfos, the conclusion of the Gemara is that there's not a problem of Kiddush Hashem by non-Jews. According to Rashi, there is a problem, but ironically, it's defined as when it's in the public, meaning amongst 10 Jews, which is pretty bizarre. But the other thing that I should point out that is strange is, if you remember from the previous discussion, Kiddush Hashem amongst Jews was only defined as the combination of farhesia and when they're trying to make you transgress, not for Hasil Hanas Atzmo. This is a perfect case of Hanas Atzmo. So it's a little bit strange that the Gemara thinks that this is a scenario of Kiddush Hashem, right? Because there's no aspect of Hanas Atzmo. Maybe it thinks that it's asking specifically because it's Avodah Zarah. But again, from the Avodah Zarah perspective, it's not real Avodah Zarah. It just looks like Avodah Zarah. So it's a little bit strange why the Gemara thinks that this is considered an issue of Kiddush Hashem altogether. Okay, anyway, so we either answer or don't answer the question of Kiddush Hashem by non-Jews. Now the Gemara continues, ends up this discussion about giving up your life. Amar Rav Yudah Marav, Ma'aseh Echad, a story with a certain man, Shenosan of the Yushachas, that he had a lust after a particular woman. Behela libotina, his eyes were looking at a certain woman, and his heart was filled with lust. He had this like uncontrollable lust for this woman. Ubo b'shalu l'rofim, and they asked the doctors, "What should we do? This guy's going crazy." The Amru ein lo takana shetiboyel. The only way he's going to sort of be cured from this is if he actually has intercourse with this woman. Rather, he should die than have intercourse with him. So then they said, all right, Tamod Lefanav Aruma. Well, maybe it'll work if just she can stand naked in front of him. That'll do something to satisfy his lust. So
she's married.
Well, we're going to get to that. Okay. Yamus ve'al Tamod Lefanav Aruma. So the rabbi says, sorry, he has to die, rather than doing that. Tisaper imam me'achurei hageder. Let them just have like a conversation. And she'll be behind the wall. I guess the idea behind the wall, so we're not afraid that he'll attack her. As a result, she'll be protected, but maybe, I don't know, was it a sexual conversation or just time to talk? Anyway, so they said, Yamus felt to stop no, better he should die. Okay, so that's an interesting end to this whole discussion. How does that fit into the parameters of what we've been talking about? So, Pligi bar Rabbi Yaakov bar Edith Rabbi Yishmael bar Nachmani. So they debated it. She was a married woman. She was unmarried. If you say she was married, it makes sense. That doesn't really make sense. We'll get back to that, but let's finish the discussion. If you say she was single, why you go so overboard? I mean, his life is at stake, at least according to what the doctors say. So if Papa Amar, well, it's true, but we're doing it to save the family from the embarrassment. Now it's interesting. You might remember before, right, that the whole discussion about saving somebody who was running after a woman to rape her or whatever, we would intervene. And one of the explanations was not just to save her from the act of assault and rape, but also because of the pagam that would result from it. But their pagam was limited to a case when it was a forbidden, when it was a actually forbidden act of intercourse, and weightily forbidden, a chayiv kars or chayiv misa. Here you don't have that. She's a pnuya. We're not assuming even that she's a nida. So it says, okay, but there's still an aspect of pagam, the pagam of the family. It's funny, and she's not nifkam at all through this. Okay, so which is strange. But anyway, but somehow you're right. From the active halachas of Yahad Val Yavur and those types of things, it's not an issue, but we have to protect the honor of the family. Okay, so the Gemara says, which presumably would be even in just talking from behind the fence. So the Gemara says, it's not just to protect the family. Let's imagine a case, I don't know, that she didn't have a family and that she was willing to go along with it or something of that. No, it's almost like for societal purposes. We cannot go ahead and give a license to this type of behavior. Some man says they're lusting after women and then we're going to allow, these types of behaviors, right? So we have to ensure this and do this to protect, to protect the Jewish women from being sort of, persuaded to do acts that are inappropriate. And for us to tolerate those things. So the Gemara says, the lints of minsav, so why didn't they just get married if she was single? Of course, it doesn't ask what she thought about it, okay? So the Gemara says, so you have to wonder all along, is she saying that she's willing to go along with this or not? No, that wouldn't have worked. Okay, maybe that would have been a solution in theory, but it wouldn't have solved his lust, his illness, which was born out of his lust. Rabbi Yitzchak, like Rabbi Yitzchak said, from the day the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the satisfaction that comes through intercourse was sort of taken away and given to only people who are doing sinful intercourse. There's greater satisfaction in transgressing, or pleasure, or guilty pleasure. Stolen waters will be sweet, and bread of hidden bread will be tasty. So bread also is often a metaphor for sexual intercourse. Now, this is a very strange Gemara. Well, not strange, but it's Gemara that needs to be grappled with, because the Gemara says, okay, the end answers, one way or another, it's saying, fine, according to halacha, it's really not a problem, but, we can't just allow this type of behavior. We as the rabbis have to safeguard women or society or protect their families or whatever the case might be, and therefore we can't tolerate this, okay? Also, and especially you understand that part of the issue is that it's not like somebody is holding a gun to this man's head, right? The guy is having this lust, this self-reported lust. So one wonders how much that sort of changes, the issue. Then the person is actually, it's generated from within him. He himself is asking to do this type of a thing, right? One wonders if somebody was holding a gun to his head and says, we want you to speak to, we want you to look at this woman when she's standing in front of you naked, right? Would we have said, no, you have to let the guy pull the trigger and kill him? Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't, but it's a very different type of a question, right? As opposed to when it's the person himself who's generating it, and what that does to open up the gates of allowing people to sort of wet and act on their sort of sexual desires. So that's at least the second answer. It's clear that it's about not tolerating this in terms of society and so on, not an actual technical halacha. But how about the first answer, that it says that she was married? If she's married, we understand it. Now, do we understand it because of the halachas about Yehag Val Yavor? But 1 minute, this isn't an actual forbidden act of intercourse. I mean, so, the first thing was, but then they said, let her stand naked, let her talk behind the fence. So some Rishonim derive from here the principle that when we say Yehag Val Yavor from the big three, it doesn't just include the act itself, it includes Avizrayu. What we said before, that word before, appurtenances. So even though it's not the actual act of forbidden, adultery, but because it's connected to it, it's some form of, sexually exciting sort of encounter. So that actually would also be Yehag Val Yavor. That also, by the way, might work before in the earlier discussion about Naaman and bending down, and even though it wasn't really Avodah Zarah, someone even goes say maybe Maris Ayin of the big three is the Yehag Val Yavor, right? What?
Yichud or something?
Right, Yichud be Yehag Val Yavor. Yichud isn't even Maris Ayin. Yichud is a concern that might lead to it, right? So then their questions are, what if it's a Doraita but not the actual weighty sin itself? What if it's a Dorabanan but it's connected to it? What if it's about just a Maris Ayin of the big three? It looks like it. I'm going to bend down in front of the idol, pick up my wallet that fell down. Okay, that's completely not Avodah Zarah, but you think I'm doing Avodah Zarah, right? So then it expands this huge way about when you say Yehag Val Yavor. And you get people asking shilas like, is it Yehag Val Yavor to go mixed swimming? I'm serious, not as a joke, right? It's Avizrayu of Gilui Arayos, people are not fully clothed, you have sexual thoughts, married women, whatever the case might be. Okay, so that's, one way that you could sort of take from this. If you think that the question of Eishes Ish means that it's because it was the big, was considered Yehag Val Yavor. Others say no. What the Gemara meant is, we understand if she was married, not why it's Yehag Val Yavor, but why, of course, the rabbis wouldn't allow it, right? How could we tolerate? I mean, from a rabbinic protecting of women, marriage, society, allow a man's, allow a married woman to stand naked before another man, right? So it's not because it would be Yehag Val Yavor. It's just would be obvious why we couldn't allow it. But if she was single, we have a harder time understanding. And then it says, no, even there we're going to allow it. Okay, so this end sugya certainly leads to a lot of fascinating discussion. What?
Even they were prohibited.
We prohibit it, but not because of Yehag Val Yavor. Yes, Charlie.
The Arabian Nights are full of love sickness stories.
Oh, really?
They usually end up with a couple getting together and society approving. So this might have been a way of making us distinct from the.
This was way before the Arabian Nights.
Some of the stories are
ancient. Oh, that's interesting. Yes.
What do we think about this parak ending with the forbidden fruits thing?
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know. I feel like it's fun to think about what they're
how the tone that a parak ends with.
Doing at the end of the parak.
Right. Right. A whole parak. It's an interesting question, thinking about the fact that Ben Sora Morris sort of starts with the idea about Al Shem Sofo and where something will lead, and maybe here also there's an aspect of taking extra precautions. That wasn't what you're saying about the last line, but thinking in that term, taking extra precautions about protecting society, the same way Ben Sora Morris protecting society. Maybe this act itself is not so intrinsically horrific, but the question is what would be the implications if? So I'm just tying it to the beginning of Ben Sora Morris. What thought do you have about that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just interesting. Or maybe the way we raise people and the boundaries we put and remembering that.
Right.
I don't know that
sometimes boundaries make things tempting.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. All right. Give it some thought. Okay. Halul Ben Sormo. Now you see why people learn this parak. It's a lot of fun. All right. Moving on. Right. Moving right on to the next parak. Okay. So that was the end of the people that get skila, of which Ben Soromor was one, and that allowed us to talk about Ben Soromor, and it allowed us to talk about Yehag Val Yavor, and about Bap and Machteret, and all those fun cases. Okay, the Eila and Nisrafim, back to the list of who gets which Misa. So we go from Skila to Sreifa, right? We all remember that from Yom Kippur, right? Did anybody notice the order? Skila, Sreifa, Harei, Chenek, when you're doing the Vidui. Okay, the Eila and Nisrafim. Now you know which way we paskin about those debates. Okay, the Eila and Nisrafim, the following people get Sreifa. Habal, you show, because it's not a long list. a man who has intercourse with a woman and her daughter. Now, as we'll find out in the Gemara, the case that's explicit in the Torah is a man who has intercourse with his mother-in-law. Okay, but that is but the mother-in-law, if you think about it, is a woman and her daughter. So that's also going to get translated into his wife's daughter, and then we're going to also discuss his own daughter and so on. Okay, Ubat Kohen. And also the Shezinsa, also the Bat Kohen who fornicates, and if you might remember, there's a big debate which case of the Bat Kohen, Arusa, Nesua, etc. But anyway, some case of the Bat Kohen, she gets Reifa. Now, Yesh B'chal Ishubita, included in the Ishubita is the following cases. Bito, his own daughter, Ubat Bito, Ubat Beno, and his own granddaughter. Now that's his own daughter and granddaughter, even if it's not his wife's daughter. Okay, if it's through a sexual relationship that was not marriage, so he could have a daughter who's not his wife's daughter or a granddaughter. So that's also gets Sreifa. Okay, Ubat Ishto, his wife's daughter, even if it's not his stepdaughter. Okay, Ubat Bito, Bat Bena, and his grand stepdaughter, his whatever that is, his step granddaughter. Okay. Chamoso. Now the case that's in the Torah of Sreifa is his mother-in-law. The Aim Chamoso, his grandmother-in-law. The Aim Chamiv, or his grandmother-in-law on his father's side. Okay. So you got all those. Okay. So those are the cases. Now, so now let's sort of start with the psukim in the Torah. Okay. The psukim in the Torah is where's Aim Chamoso? So, gives you the psukim there?
Yeah.
Yud Zayin says, one at a time. Yud Zayin is, Ervat Isha Ufita Lo Segaleh, okay, Et Bat Benav Et Bat Bita, Lo Tikach Galot Ervata She'era Hinazimehi. So that is the case of wife's daughter and granddaughter, okay? So, what is that? Ervat. So, 1 minute. Okay, here's the wife's daughter, granddaughter. Okay, so that's even if it's not his. So that's Ervat, Isha, Ubita. Okay, lo tikalak bat bina, that bat bita.
Steinsaltz is a comprehensive picture.
Fine, Zimahi. Okay, Zimahi. Zimahi is going to be an important word. Okay, so that's one. What's the next pasuk? What's the other pasuk? What? Kaf Yudalid. The Isha Sheikach Sishav Es Ima. Okay, so that's, let's use a different color. The mother, that's Chamoto. Okay. Zimahi, okay, so Zimahi, so there's the Zimahi, and it's Ba'esh Yisrafu. Now notice, here you have the punishment, here you have the negative Lo Segalai, forgot the word, Lo Segalai. Here you have the prohibition, and here you have the punishment. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to say, how do you know what's punished here? That's by fire. We're going to connect going up a generation to going down generations. Okay, so a wife and her mother and a wife and her daughter, they're both going to be by fire. How do you know this is prohibited? We're going to apply the prohibition up here and the punishment down here. We're going to connect the two. Okay, so that's in terms of wife's daughter, granddaughter, and wife's mother, and we're going to figure out how to include grandmother. Now, how do you know about a man's own daughter? So that's a pasuk. You have the next pasuk. It is, where is it?
2014.
What?
Is it 2014?
2014. So good.
No,
You should know.
We did that one.
Yud Chet Yud.
Did you do some?
Yeah, thank you. Ervat bat bincha, you're talking to the man, right? Granddaughter. O bat bincha lo tegaler ervatan ki ervatcha hena. Okay, so that's
10.
what?
Is that 10? Before you put 10?
Yeah. Okay, so that's your. Wish I had a better working one here. I want a different color. Hold on, let me see if I got one up by my thing here. Okay. Yes. Okay. Rabbi. Now, interestingly, okay, it only mentions, by the way, it doesn't, it could be son's daughter as well. It only mentions granddaughter, okay? It says, Ervat, Bat Bincha, Obat Bitcha, Bincha, Obat Bitcha, Lo Tegaleh Ervatan, Ki Ervatcha.
Skips over bat.
Yeah, it skips over Bat. Okay, we're going to sort of
It's
figure
not
that out, get it by a
implied,
Kavachomer. Anyway, Lo Tegaleh Ervatan. So here's what we're going to have to do. Okay, Ki Ervatcha Hena. The Hena is going to be important later. Ki Ervatcha Hena. So what we're going to have to do, we'll worry about that later, okay, is first of all, here we're going to have to figure out how do you go up another generation? How do you connect? This gives the punishment. This gives the punishment. This gives the prohibition. That'll be easy enough, sort of. Then we're going to have to figure out here how do you get the punishment, and how do you also include like the daughter? You know, because we just started with the granddaughter. So that's how we're going to have to fill out everything. Okay.
Do you want to put Adika there also?
No, I don't think so. Okay. So all right. Let's take a look at the Gemara.
Separate prohibition.
So the Mishnah says, as if like the Mishnah says, the core case is Isha Bita, and we're going to include in Isha Bita all of these cases. So the core case of Sreifa should have been the case of mother-in-law, because that's the case in the Torah. But the Gemara is saying that's not what it says explicitly. About Isha Shenasa Bita Loktan, he doesn't say a man who has intercourse with a woman whose daughter he has married. That would be the case in the Torah, the mother-in-law. Ella Habali Isha Ubita. It sounds like mother and daughter, unrelated to the fact that you're married to the woman. So Michlal Ditravayu Isura. So it sounds like what we're talking about is two cases in which that can be mother-in-law. What does that mean? Two cases that can be mother-in-law. If you're not married to either of them. So what we're saying is you're married to this woman. And Haba al Isha Ubita. That if you go ahead and have intercourse with either the grandmother-in-law or her daughter or your mother-in-law, that would be a case of the explicit biblical prohibition. Okay, that's how we're reading it, right? Because it doesn't say, we know we have to start with the biblical case of mother-in-law. That's the only case it explicitly says Sreifa. But it doesn't say you're married to either of the women in the Mishnah. So the only cases of mother-in-law that you're not married to either of the women is we're talking about your grandmother-in-law, that's the Isha, or her daughter, or your mother-in-law.
So just a wider thing, like a.
Meaning, why don't we just say that means an
wife.
abstract category, right? So the Gemara's understanding that the Mishnah is starting with the idea of the concrete case in the Torah and then broadening it. Not like it's not starting with an abstraction. I understand how you want to read it, okay? But that's at least the assumption the Gemara is working with, okay? Umani, what would that be? Chamosa ve'im chamosa v'kitani yesh b'chal yisha bita, and it's saying like starting from this concrete case, the other things are included. Michlal. It sounds like the first case in the Mishnah meant these are the explicit cases in the Torah of Sreifa, and the rest are included. The rest are going to be excluded by a drasha. Honey, so that means that the case, we're going to assume the case in the Torah is not just mother-in-law, but grandmother-in-law. So we're going to have a whole issue later, which we're not going to unpack now, but a way of understanding a certain debate. And according to Abaye, within that debate, Rabbi Akiva will say that in the Torah, it's implicit that the grandmother-in-law also gets Sreifa. Okay, so according to Rabbi Akiva, that way of reading Rabbi Akiva, the Mishnah could say these two are the cases in the Torah because he thinks grandmother-in-law is in the Torah. But according to Rava, that says that they're really debating over there, later we'll see, the question about is mother-in-law still prohibited after the wife dies, okay? And that nobody, though, says that grandmother-in-law is in the psukim, all right? So according to that approach, that nobody says grandmother-in-law is in the psukim, masnisin mani, who's our Mishnah going like? So fine. When it says mother and a daughter, it means a mother whose daughter you have married. Just read the Mishnah that Isha Bitan, the Mishnah means your wife and her mother. That's what it means. It means the concrete case of mother-in-law. Don't read it in this fancy way that it means mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law. Okay? So that was just the first line in the Mishnah. We want to get the first case in the Mishnah, not like Jenna said, an abstraction. We want it to be a concrete case in the Torah of mother-in-law, which is the explicit case in the Torah of Sreifa. Now we're going to have to worry about all the rest of this board. So let's take a look. Okay, so the first thing we say is included in the first case is, the end of the Mishnah is mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law. So Abaye, so remember Abaye said that the first case in the Mishnah was grandmother-in-law. So what does the end of the Mishnah mean when it says, included in this is grandmother-in-law? So Abaye, I did Kabbalah Misni Aim Chamiv. You're right. According to Abai, the only thing the end of the Mishnah is including is grandmother-in-law on the father's side. Grandmother-in-law on the mother's side, right, he thinks is explicit in the Psukim. All right, it's a little funny because we haven't seen this debate later on, but you got the point that they're debating whether the first case in the Mishnah, according to Abai, refers to a grandmother-in-law. Then the end of the Mishnah says, included in the first case in the Mishnah, it also expands to include grandmother-in-law. But wait, Abai said the first case was grandmother-in-law. No. The first case was grandmother-in-law on your mother's side. The end of the Mishnah is saying, and it's also included grandmother-in-law on the father's side. 1 minute. Okay. The Rava, I did aim chamiv, aim chamoso. No, according to Rava, it's much easier, right? The end of the Mishnah is expanding it beyond mother-in-law to grandmother-in-law on father's side or mother's side. So Taninami chamosos, the end of the Mishnah also mentions mother-in-law. Right? You understand the problem. This works very well with Genesis. The end of the Mishnah, the beginning of the Mishnah says that mother and her daughter, and then the end says, and this also includes mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law. So what did it refer to initially? So Jenna would say, no, initially we're just talking about an abstraction, and then we're listing the specifics. Okay, but the Gemara is saying initially we're talking about the concrete case in the Torah. So if the concrete case in the Torah is mother-in-law, what do you mean at the end when you say, this includes mother-in-law? So the point is, no. Some of it was already included, mother-in-law, grandmother-in-law on one side, but we're saying it includes all the cases relating to mother-in-law, even grandmother-in-law, even grandmother-in-law on the father's side, and so on. Okay. Yeah, Charlie, had a question?
It sounds like they get to the same place, but through different logic.
Well, they're correct, although there is a question whether grandmother-in-law is explicit in the Psukim or not. But it doesn't matter. Right now, we're just parsing the Mishnah. Okay, now we're done with parsing the Mishnah, and now we're going to get to figuring out how all of these are included, okay? Because this is the only case that's explicit in the Torah that gets sreifa, all right? The other things are explicit. These are explicit that they're forbidden, okay? But this is the only one. See, that's why I did it in red. That's the only one that's explicit that gets burned. Okay. So, all right. So it says like this. Now, Minani Mili, where do you get this from to expand it to all these cases? As a man takes a woman and her mother. How do you know that all these cases, which are forbidden, how do you know they also get sreifa, the daughters? Minayan. Where were we? I just lost my place. Minayan. Nemer kan zima v'nemer lalan zima. Zimahi. So that's going to be great. That's going to let us do a lot of application here. Okay. Malahalan bitao bat bina. Afkan bitao bat bina. Okay. So the same way over there. Wait. That makes sense. The same way, I guess it means that all these are forbidden. It's a little funny, lahalan and kan. Yeah, but that's what Rashi says it. The same way they're forbidden, daughter and granddaughter. So when it comes to the punishment, we're also going to say daughter and granddaughter. So the zimahi is going to allow us. This zimahi is going to allow us to say sreifa. Okay, so that's how we're going to get those to be sreifa. Okay. How do you know to make men like women? Whatever that means, we'll see in the Gemara. Nemer kan zima v'nemer lalan zima, because of zima. So the Gemara is going to try to figure out what that means. It's not clear at all what that means. How do you know to make something below like the thing above? Nemer kan zima v'nemer lalan zima. The same way over there, below is like above. Also here, below is like above. Very cryptic. The whole rest of the Yamid is going to be figuring out this male, female, and below and above thing. And then the same way there, above is like below. Here too, above is like below. So the end of this that doesn't seem to make any sense, but somehow we're going to interpret it in a way to get in everything here. So let's take a look. Okay. Amar Mar. So mazacharim kinekevos. What do you mean make the males like the females? So if you mean that the granddaughter of the daughter and the granddaughter of the son have the same status. Okay, these granddaughters are the same, right? They're equally forbidden. So that's explicit in the psukim, right? It says bat beno bat bita. So you don't need a pasuk for that. Okay, so ilema bat beno to bat bita b'hadiyadani kastin. They're both explicit in the psukim, and in terms of getting sreifa, they're both included at the same time, since they're in this pasuk, and we applied sreifa here. So we don't need something else to say granddaughter through the daughter or granddaughter through the son. It's the same thing. Okay, so Ella aim chamiv ke aim chamoso. What we mean is, how do you know that not only is forbidden is your grandmother on your mother's side, on your wife's mother's side, but also your grandmother on your wife's father's side? Okay, that's aim chamiv and aim chamoso. How do we know that these great grandmothers-in-laws have this are the same? Okay, so that's a reasonable question. So the Gemara says, Hashta aim chamoso lo kamalan, aim chamiv mahadrala, but we haven't even proven grandmother-in-law. The psukim don't talk about grandmother, so we wouldn't be jumping to talk about grandmother on the mother's side, father's side versus mother's side. We would first have to establish that grandmother is forbidden. All right? So that can't be male and female because we haven't established that yet. So Amar Abaye, now we turn the Amar. So Abaye says, Hachi Kamar, this is what it means. Minayin lasok she'er haba mimenu k'she'er haba mimena. So Zacharim and Nekevot here are talking about husband and wife. We know that her granddaughters, right, are forbidden and get sreifa. How do we know that his daughter and granddaughters, we know they're forbidden? How do we know they get sreifa? That's a good question, right? Because all of those were included in the Mishnah. So we've got these getting sreifa. We've got these getting sreifa. How do you know these get sreifa? So that's Zecharim Kinikevot, meaning descendants of the man are like descendants of the woman. These apply to his wife's daughters, whether they're his kids or not. What about when they're his kids, but they're not his wife, but he never married their mother? Okay?
It would just be complicated. I mean, like, it seems like if you're related to them.
Yes, I agree, but there's a general principle of Einon Shemin Hadin and so on, right? And anyway, but conceptually also it is different, right? I mean, when it says like Isha Ubita, right? There's a sense of like the two women are like related to one another, right? Whereas this is conceptually different. This is you're related to the woman you the man are related to the woman you're having intercourse with, as opposed to the two women are connected. So how do you know that we know they're prohibited, but how do you know to apply sreifa to them? That's a good question. That's part of what we have to do. Right? We know that's part of what we're out here to prove. Okay, so it says Nemer kan zima v'nemer la'alan zima. Because it says zima here or whatever, and it says zima here. The problem is, and therefore we apply sreifa. The same way it said zima here, we apply sreifa. It says zima here, and we apply sreifa. But the Gemara says 1 minute. The Gemara says there's only a little problem. It doesn't say zima here. So you're saying we're going to get sreifa because of the word zima. There's no word zima here. So Amar Rava, Amar Li Rav Yitzchak Pravdimi, Asya Heina Heina Asya Zima Zima. No, but it does say Heina here. He Eratcha Heina. And in another verse, completely unrelated to this, it says, there's a word where it says Heina and Zima. What's the word it says? What? Where is it? Yochet Yudzayin? Yeah.
We read yesterday.
Yeah, but it's not. Somebody's paying attention. But it might be, but it's not a pasuk related to any of this. It's just some pasuk that has both of those keywords in it. No, that doesn't say Heina. Right. Oh no, it does. You're right. She'era Heina Zima. I'm sorry, I apologize. It is related to this. Okay, this pasuk says I cut it out. I should have had it here. Sorry. Okay. She'era Heina. So my mistake. I'm sorry. She'era Heina. It does say both keywords there. Okay, Zima. So yeah, so you're right. It does. It says when it says Zima Zima, it means from this we get Zima here, and from the Heina we apply it from here to here. Okay, you got it? So the Zima here got us to do straight for here, and the Heina link gets us to now take it the next step further and apply Sreifa to this case. All right? So it says Zima, but it doesn't really mean Zima. It says the Zima drasha carries over. All right? So that's how we got These get sreifa and these get sreifa. Okay, Asya heina heina, Asya zima zima. Amar mar. Good. That was a good read of the Breita, the Zechrim Kinkevos, and it got us done one of the things we needed to know how to get done, which is to get sreifa to that case. Okay, Amar mar, minayin lasos lamata kilamala. Now we're left with this other strange phrase in the Breita, above like below. So my lamata kilamala, what does that mean, above and below? Even with bat bita, bat bita kibita. If you mean, how do we know? How do we know to apply? So above, right? This means well, here if we're going down this way, right? Above is a closer relation, and below is a lower relation. So if it says, how do you know to apply that the granddaughters are like the daughters? So it says we don't need a special pasuk to say granddaughters are like daughters. They're all in the same pasuk, right? Bapina, bapita, losikach, etc. They're all learned out together. We don't need a separate pasuk to tell you her granddaughters are like her daughters. They're all learned out together to get sreifa. They're all in the same pasuk. Ella im chami ve'im chamoso kichamoso. Maybe it means like this, which is the one thing we really have left to do is grandmother-in-law. That is the one thing we haven't done yet. Okay. Also his own daughter, but we won't worry about that right now. So how do you know to apply above, further related to him, like below, like the one that's sort of like closer to him? Okay, so how do you know to play that? So the Gemara says, "Hi, lamata kilamala." It shouldn't say, "How do you know to apply below like above?" Lamala kilamata have. It should have said, "How do you know to apply above like below?" All right, so it's just, yes, we understand you have to do that to go up a generation, but the phrase this should be below and this should be above. Okay, so how do you? So fine, tani lamala kilamata. Fine, reverse the language in the Breita. That's what it means. How do you know to apply the above case like the below case? To apply it to the grandmother-in-law. So okay, fine. That's what we're trying to do. Apply it to the grandmother-in-law. But the Breita says you learn it from the word zima. All right. So where's zima being said by one generation higher that you're going to get? The one generation higher isn't even mentioned. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So Nemer kan tani the fine. Yochi Nemer kan zima Nemer lahalan zima. 1 minute, the case of the grandmother-in-law isn't in the psukim at all. Zima diduk siva? Oh, it says zima by that. No, the problem is it doesn't mention it at all. You can't say it says zima. So what do you mean you're learning out from the word zima? Okay, so that's clearly a good question. What the heck is going on here? So Amar Baye, Hachi Kamar. I mean, yes, we are trying to learn grandmother-in-law, but if I asked you, how would you try to learn out grandmother-in-law from what we have on the board? What would be the basis for saying that grandmother-in-law should be prohibited?
Go down an extra generation, then should go up.
Exactly. Since we know that when it's the wife's descendants, it goes down 2 generations. When it's the wife forebearers, it should also go up 2 generations. So that's exactly what Abaye reads into the Mishnah. Okay, let's take a look. The Breita. Okay, so Amar Abaye, Hachi Kamar. How do you know, the phrase is, how do you know to make lema'ala kilamata? So lema'ala kilamata does not mean 1 generation removed versus 2 generations removed. Lema'ala kilamata means, how do you know that when you're going up, you go up 2 generations, the same way that when you're going down, you go down 2 generations, okay? And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is apply it to the grandmother-in-law. So Amar Abaye, Hachi Kamar. To go 3, it says 3 because it counts the wife as the first generation. How do you know to go up, 2 more generations, the same way when you go down? Now it all works. We got the zima connection, right? These two have the zima connection. So we first use the zima to say sreifa here. But now we're going to use the zima here to say, because of the zima connection, tell you that you go up the same way down here. Here it's 2 generations. There it's 2 generations. Now it works very beautifully. That's the zima. That's exactly what we needed to do. Okay. Umab onesh. Now the one thing we have left to do, which we didn't do, is we have here the prohibition and the punishment, sreifa, based on the zima. Here the prohibition and the pasuk and the punishment sreifa, based on the hena link. We have here 1 sreifa, 1 generation. The Gzeira Shava tells you 2 generations. The only thing we don't have here is we know. How do we know it's prohibited? And that's going to be finished off by the zima connection. Once the zima connection is saying you apply this to that, the same way this tells you go up a generation, it's going to say the same way this is prohibited, that's prohibited. It's not enough that the Torah tells you get punished.
Oh.
Yes, we can infer that, but
Yeah.
the Gemara's general principle is ein on shemelim kain mazhirin. It's not enough that the Torah says a punishment. We have to have a basis to say, here's where it's saying you're not allowed to do it. Okay? So the saying of it is saying of it through the Gzeira Shava. Okay? Uma ba'onish asa lamata klamala, af b'azara nami osa lamala klamata. The end of the Breita. So the Breita says, how do you know to make above like below? It means, how do you know to make the above 2 generations like the below is 2 generations? And then it says, how do you know to make the below like the, anyway, somehow he says at the end of the Breita saying is, and also, and how do you know that to make this prohibited with a negative prohibition like this is, that's also learned from the zima. Okay? So, uma ba'onish asa lamata kalamala, the same way when it comes to the punishment, right? The thing that is below is like the thing above. The same way this gets sreifa and this gets sreifa. Af be'azhara, when it comes to the prohibition, nami asa lamala kalamata, the above comes like the below. Okay, so he says that's what the 2 phrases in the Breita of above and below is doing. First, it's telling you go up 2 generations, and then it's telling you this is prohibited as well. Rav Ashi says another variation of this. Olam kiriktani. Don't switch around the brisa, which is above and which is below. Umay lamata bi'isur. When it says lamata, it means less prohibited. Now, all that means is I won't go into trying to read the whole Breita with it, but what he basically, I mean, not less prohibited, they're equally prohibited. But basically, he just says that the phrase, right, remember we said like the phrase of lamata kilamala was like, the phrase was wrong because with Rabbi is meaning this should have said, if it was comparing this to this, it should have said, this should have been lamala, wait, no, I'm sorry. I gotta remind myself from Rashi how this reads. Hold on one second. Right, the phrase was, how do you know to do, right. It's just really a difference in terminology. How do you know to make lamata to lama'ala? Okay, so Abaye reversed it. Arai said, how do you know to make lama'ala, the mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law, like lamata, like the daughters, right? That's what Abaye said. Rav Ashi says, no, lamata to lama'ala means, this is called lamata, and this is called lamala. Why? That's bizarre, right? But he says, because lamata means less severe of a relationship, and lamala means a more severe of a relationship. So since these are further removed, they are a weaker relationship. And since these are closer, they're a heavier relationship. So it's still the same point. How do you know to forbid the grandmother-in-law like the mother-in-law? And it's still going to be the same point that we learned it out from the case of the daughters. It's just a question what the terms are referring to, okay? So the bottom line is, however you exactly parse the lamala to lamata, it's saying, we get sreifa here because of the mother-in-law, and then we apply it to his daughters, and we get 2 generations by the zima by applying it up from the daughters to the mothers and the grandmothers-in-law. Okay. Phew, now we've done all that. Now, here's the question. The one thing we haven't done is it's turned out how do you know his own daughter, but we'll worry about that later. Okay. Now, ima hi ein ima asura, afu ein ima asura. As long as we're making a whole parallel here, so why don't we say the same way here, like these, it goes down, we should make a connection, make the hein or whatever connection we're making, and saying, not only is he forbidden with his mother, which is explicit in the Psukim, but maybe he should be forbidden with his grandmother. And ironically here, to be your Kalvachomer, he's not. A man's grandmother is only forbidden to him, his biological grandmother is only forbidden to him rabbinically, whereas his wife's grandmother is forbidden to him biblically. Okay? Wow. So it's saying, but look, by parallel, so far everything has been parallel, right? So by parallel, maybe his own grandmother should be forbidden to him. Why should we say not that way? Okay, so let's take a look. And we know that's not true. So Amar Abaye, Amar Kra, the verse says, Imchahi, she is your mother. Lo segaler vasa. Mishum imo atem mechayva, v'atem mechayva mishum einimo. They emphasize she is your mother means we stop at mother. We don't go any further. Rava Amar, now Rava says, look, forget that. Even without that pasuk, I could explain to you why it's impossible, based on the linking of the two, to say that it should be true by grandmother. Bein lamandamar don mina umina. Bein lamandamar don mina v'uki ba'atra. Now this is a very fascinating two, different methodologies. If I link two things, A to B, and to learn out a particular halacha, if I learn like A and B are linked, so if something is true by B, it's also going to be true by A. Once I take that halacha that's true by B and I apply it to A, do I then say, I just apply that one little halacha by B, but once I put it in the A category, its parameters are defined by the normal way in which A category works? Or do I say, no, if I'm going to be borrowing a halacha from B, I have to take it in the whole context in which it appears in B and apply it in A. So that's don mina umina, learn from it and from it. If you're taking something from B and applying it to A, you got to take it with its entire context from B. Or don mina, learn from it, but uki ba'atra, then put it in the new location and have it defined by the new context. Okay, you hear the two? So let's see how this applies. He says, whichever way you would normally do it, lo asya, you cannot learn out from here to here to say it should be grandmother. Let's see. Laman damer don mina mina, learn from it with its original context. So mahi emi ma asura, afu nami emi ma asura. The thing would be the same way when it comes to his wife. Grandmother is forbidden. When it comes to him, grandmother is forbidden. That's what we would want to learn out. The thing we're learning out is grandmother is forbidden. Okay, but the larger context is, what is the punishment? Okay, umina. So that's don mina, umina. Now let's take the context in which it occurs. Umahi b'sreifa, afhunami b'sreifa. The same way, right? Her grandmother is sreifa. If we were to forbid his grandmother by analogy, if it's don mina umina, she gets sreifa. Everybody with me? But his own mother, the Torah tells you, is skila. So now we've got a little logical problem. Okay, so okay. But 1 minute. If sreif is weightier, that should prevent you from making the learning altogether. How you say, oh, her grandmother's forbidden. His grandmother should be forbidden. No, we know that her mother, whatever, is weightier because her mother is sreifa, his mother is skila. So therefore, since this whole category is weightier, we shouldn't be able to learn it out. Number one. Va'od, imo b'skila, imo b'sreifa, the conclusion would be crazy. Not only is this weightier, and we can't learn out from her mother to his mother, but how could it be that his own mother is skila and his grandmother is sreifa? How could it be a weightier punishment? Va'od, mahi lo chalakta ba bein ima le'emima, afunami lo tachlok bein imo le'emimo. And forgetting which is weightier, by her, mother and grandmother get the same punishment. By him, they're getting different punishments. So there's no, if you're going to apply the same principle, mina umina, if you're going to learn that grandmother, it's going to come with sreifa, okay? So then it's crazy. Then there's no logic that grandmother should be sreifa and mother should be skila, okay? Okay, ulamandar maskila chamor, and even if stoning is weightier, mehai kushaloni dona. So some of the earlier things that, how could it be that this is worse than the grandmother? Fine. Forget the question of worse. Forget that it's worse. Whichever one is worse. If there's no here, mother and grandmother are the same, and according to this, mother and grandmother would be different, and that would be enough to tell you that you cannot learn it out because it doesn't maintain the consistency. So if you say don mina mina, you can't learn it out because that would get sreifa, and this would be skila, and that wouldn't make any sense. Now, how about if you say don mina v'uki be'atra? According to the one that says don mina v'uki be'atra, we'll learn out the principle that she gets. That it's forbidden and she gets put to death. But then we're going to put it in the context of mother. And in the context of mother, it's skila, not sreifa. Mahi emi masura, the same way by the wife, grandmother's forbidden. Afu nami emi mo asura, his grandmother's forbidden. But that's mina. Uki ba'atra. But then put it in that context. Hasam hud b'sreifa, by the grandmother it's sreifa. By the wife's grandmother it's sreifa. Aval hacha b'skila. You understand the domi navuki b'Torah? Yes, we learned that forbidden, but in the context of skila. Kidashkan b'imo, like the mother. That's the current context. So now here's why that can't work. L'man damar sreiv chamor ikal mifrach. Fine. So fine, they're both going to get skila. But you still could say, how can I make an analogy? If her grandmother is forbidden, his grandmother should be forbidden. Grandmother is forbidden because it's getting a weightier punishment. Clearly this is more problematic because it's sreifa. This is only skila. So just because here you go up to grandmother doesn't mean here you go up to grandmother. Okay, ikal mifrach. Malahi shekain ima b'sreifa. Tomer b'hush ima b'skila. Okay, so you can't. So even if this would be consistent skila, you could say if this is a weightier category, it gets sreifa. I can't make an analogy. Va'od, and in another one, hu kihi mahi lo chalakta bein bita le'ein ima af hu lo tachlok bein bita le'ein imo. Look, there's another consistency problem. Her granddaughter gets sreifa, and her grandmother gets sreifa, right? If this is getting skila, we've got a problem. His granddaughter gets sreifa, but his grandmother gets skila. So it's not going to remain consistent, okay? So, afulo tachlok ben bito le'emimo. Okay, at 5. So, ulamad amar skila chamor, and even if skila is a weightier punishment, nehai kushaloni dona, that question prevents you from learning it out. Because it doesn't really matter what's weightier or less weighty. The problem is that it's not consistent. Right. That if this is going to get skila, then it's based on an analogy to his wife, the analogy will fail. Because by the wife, granddaughter and grandmother are the same, and by him, grandmother and daughter or granddaughter are not the same. So there's no way by analogy to learn it out because the analogy just fails, okay? So since it's going to fail in one part, we cannot learn it out, and you're left with the irony that, well, besides that the mother's skila and these are sreifa, and sreifa is weightier than skila, okay, you do not go up another generation by the mother. So we basically have proven all of this, and we've proven why you don't go up. And the one thing we sort of have yet to directly address is how do you know his own daughter, and not just his granddaughter, which is a sort of a kavul chomer, right. But we will get to that.
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't usually execute people on kavul.
Right, exactly.
How do you know it's skila?